video or like do FaceTime or any of
Mm-hmm.
this video stuff. So it was really overwhelming, kind of suddenly being on Zoom for like, 5, 6 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So any break I had, I would go out in the backyard in between the rain and just sit on a bucket and pull weeds by
Yeah.
hand. And
Wow.
it took me like 2 months. And then by then, the whole yard, front and back, were cleared. And then I started learning how to plant like native
Mm-hmm.
like Southwest California plants
Nice.
and things. Did some gardening. We built some. Um, we had a friend help build like some shade, like a little shaded cover thing, because
It's
there's
just
no
always
shade, and
done.
that's not going to fly in LA. You need some shade.
No, no. Are you born and raised in LA?
I'm from San Bernardino,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, so from the area, and if folks don't know, it's about 45 minutes, hour east of LA.
Oh, okay.
Um, Most people just know of San Bernardino because either they recognize the name because if you're driving out to Palm Springs or you're going up to the mountains, you
Mm.
pass through it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or what else? I mean, it ended up in the news from a terrorist attack like 5 years ago. I think that was the first. That was very strange to. It's one of those sort of. I would sort of say when I was in New York, it's like being from Long Island
Mm-hmm.
and people from who grew up in the city, they're like, I'm from Queens, and you're like, I'm from Long Island. They're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, you know what that
Oh,
is.
that's mean. That's mean. Wow. You guys are haters out there. Damn.
So, but I was at my studio last night. I was like working late, and there's a taco truck on the corner.
Ooh. No.
And, I was like chatting with the guy at the taco truck, and he started talking something about like it being real foggy on the 15. And I was like, what are you talking about, the 15? I was like,
Mhm.
are you from I was like, San Bernardino? He's like, yeah, I live up there. Like, he lives up in the mountains. I was like, damn, he's
Wow.
coming down from the
That's cute.
mountains, like into
Holy.
LA. Anyways, it's like it's funny because sometimes like people on the outskirts of like the greater LA area have a different relationship to like
Mm-hmm.
into the city. But anyways, I'm here. My mom's from the South,
Mm.
and my father's from Uganda. And I grew up here, went to New York for
Mm-hmm.
about 14 years, and then came back to LA about 6 years ago. Are you
So,
are you from St. Louis?
yeah, I wasn't born here. I was born in Rochester, New York, and then soon
Oh,
after we went to Denver and then Minneapolis. And now we've been here since I was in the first grade. So,
okay.
what first grade was 86, 87 maybe?
Hmm.
And it's just I grew up in North County, which is what I call NoCo because I never want to go back there again. But it's so strange to say that because like when I was in high school, you can't wait to get away from the area you
Hmm.
grew up in. And then my dad was very sick and I didn't want to leave him alone with my mom. So I went to the local college here.
Hmm.
But I still lived in NoCo. So it was just like I never actually left St. Louis. Um, so now I live on the opposite side of St. Louis. So instead of the north
Okay.
side, I live on the south side, which
Okay.
is nice, very tree. We live in the forest, basically. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard this, but St. Louis is the largest small town you could ever have. We know
Oh, cool.
everyone here. I used to play a game where I would go somewhere, it's like a little neighborhood. There's a neighborhood called View City. And I would follow someone, like I'd be like, I'm gonna pick this guy out, whoever this
Hmm.
person is. And I swear to God, I would see them somewhere else later on that week. Because I was just like, should we be friends? We socialize in the same areas. I'm
Hmm.
really confused by how what the hell is going on? Like, I would see the same person, and not just one day, not just one time a week, but like
Hmm.
several times in that week or month, I would see the same person and not in the same area. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
just like kind of amazing. It's this. It's very friendly here. The Black people are very friendly. The white people are very friendly. In St. Louis, however, in the counties, it's a little bit different. But we won't
Hmm.
talk about them because they're not wearing their masks. Yeah, they're not wearing their masks, so we don't go out there anymore. Yeah, St. Louis is really ridiculous. It's just like, there's a lot of anger with wearing the mask and everything. It's just like, calm down. It's a mask. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
In fact, it would be better if you wore the mask,
Hmm.
because then our hospitals wouldn't be overcrowded with COVID patients.
Yep.
It just
Yeah.
makes no sense. I want to know how you got started in photography, because you're 38 or 39.
38.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm 38.
I,
Actually, because my birthday was at the end of last month.
oh, okay.
So right at the beginning of Scorpio season.
Oh, nice. I'm a Capricorn. Capricorn season is on its way. So
Hmm.
it always snows on my birthday.
Oh wow.
It's very disappointing. That or it's freezing cold and no one feels like going out.
Oh no.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
my 21st birthday was a nightmare. It was snowing that day and no one came out but like my best friend. He just happened to live down the street from me. So I went to one bar because it was open. All the rest of the bars were closed. So I'm like, this is the crappiest 21st birthday
Hmm.
anyone could ever have.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah.
well. Anyways, how did you get started in photography?
Oh, I mean, I got started in photography when I was in high school,
Yeah.
something, you know. I
Mhm.
It's like I was thinking, okay, it's like when did I get started in photography, and then when did I like figure out art? It seemed like
Mhm.
kind of two related but different things. I mean, I started, you know how kids are. It's like you
Mhm.
start drawing and doodling when you're like 5, and then everyone's like, take art classes, and you do this thing.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you know, painting and drawing and
Mhm.
little ceramics, whatever the school, you know, the school and things had. But I got really into like computers and things. So I
Mhm.
was thinking I was like, since I was in middle school or the beginning of high school, like, I'm going to study like computer science or something like that.
Wow.
But then I got like a little Polaroid, like one of those little instant Polaroids for my maybe
Hmm.
my 13th, 14th birthday, and
Yeah.
just was always playing around with it. But anyways, I I absolutely hated my high school art teacher. And he wasn't even an art teacher. He was the government teacher, and it was at this like conservative Catholic high school. So I just did not get along.
Yeah.
So I had to get my art credit done. So I was like taking these little photos with this
Hmm.
Polaroid, and there was a photo class that high school students could take at the University of California, Riverside,
Nice.
which was like a half-hour drive away.
Hmm.
So I took that class, and it was like an intro to black and white, and
Hmm.
I learned how to do that. And then and I think it was through that I realized you could go to school
Hmm.
like for art. So yeah, that's how I really got into it. And then I was just like obsessively photographing like every day,
Right.
photographing at school. Like, you know, my mom had this 70s Minolta, I think it was, camera from when she was in college in like
Hmm.
1970, and she gave that to me. So I
Hmm.
had this like, you know, manual camera, and then I got chemistry from this photo supply store in town, and we had
Oh,
a
wow.
little dark room in the garage, because
Mhm.
it happens to be that our neighbor across the street was were family friends,
Mhm.
and the husband, Mr. Kimball, he was a photographer, and he had like a little photo studio in part of the garage. So
Hmm.
he let me borrow one of the enlargers.
Oh,
So I got to set up my own little thing. Anyways, that's how I got into it. But it was, um, you know, I wanted to take like fashion photos, you
really?
know, like pop, you know, because like when you're 16, you know, when you're 16, 17, and I would just like be at the book stand, or like
Mhm.
my friends and I would come in, like drive into Hollywood and like go through all the magazine stands. And, you know, I always tell students when they're like, how'd you get into this? I'm like, I wanted to take pictures like David LaChapelle's photos of Lil Kim for Vibe or something like
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah.
that's, and then I went to school, and then being in New York, my first year like undergrad photos, I was like trying to cover people in glitter and like the cheapest like like rhinestones that an 18-year-old with no budget can get, and you're
Yeah.
like, this is rough. um
Wow.
but spending time and taking classes and learning, like I think a few years in,
Hmm.
by the time of my like junior senior year, I was like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
like art is a thing, is a thing. So that's kind of how I say I got into it.
Yeah. I got into photography because I wanted to be a cinematographer. I was
Oh,
obsessed with Alfred Hitchcock, and I worked at Blockbuster during high school,
oh
and
yeah,
um,
Blockbuster.
yeah, but that we're old, Paul. And I videotapes Blockbuster,
Mhm.
no less. And I rented every Alfred Hitchcock movie they had in the
Wow.
damn store. Because I was absolutely obsessed, and I thought for sure I would be a cinematographer type director. And then I saw
Mhm.
Pulp Fiction, and I bought the screenplay, and I remember like, oh, I could also be a writer for screenplays. And I tried doing that, and it absolutely sucks because I'm in high school, and what do I have to say about anything? So it's just like, well, this is crap. So then it morphed into, what if I made videos of songs that I liked? Like I was really into like Smashing Pumpkins then,
Mhm.
and I
Oh
was
my
just,
God.
yeah,
Yes.
uh,
I actually just went on a Smashing Pumpkins kick. In my
yeah.
studio, I just listened to every album in sync.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad. I can't, I mean, it's not like the albums were horrible. It was just like bringing back those feelings of high school awkwardness of like, I can't listen to this anymore. Like it's ruined it for me. It
Mhm.
ruined it. The my upbringing ruined Smashing Pumpkins, which is just sad.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I couldn't afford a video camera, so my dad loaned me his Pentax Spotamac, the manual camera, before I bought myself a K1000, my
Mhm.
first camera that I bought with my own babysitting money.
Yeah.
And my teachers would give me film. There was no photography club in my high school. I mean, class in my high school. There was a club, and it was supposed to be more of like a journalism club.
Mhm.
Um, but none of us did journalism. And then all of a sudden, I was the club. Like people just stopped going to the meetings. I was like, oh, I guess I'm by myself. That's okay, whatever. I could do this by myself. It's fine. So,
Yeah.
but I never wanted to be a journalist. I thought, well, it's fun. I do documentary photographs of like friends and family and whatnot, but it never felt like I didn't want to go to war or something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Mhm.
out in the streets living this life. I don't want to do
Mhm.
that. I'm from North County. This is not going to happen for me. I don't want to be involved. And then art became this attainable thing for me. Like if like of course I'll be an artist. Like that just seems logical. And then I realized how hard it is to be an artist. So then I thought, well, crap, I need a day job. And I
Mhm.
thought for sure I could be a magazine photographer for Vogue. I was like, I'm down. Like they're gonna hire me immediately once they see my high school portfolio. They're gonna be
Oh
like,
my
on the
God.
next plane, Tiffany, you need to shoot Naomi Campbell.
I
Yeah.
I feel I could talk all about that. I
Yeah.
feel you.
It was just, oh my goodness. So then I got into college, and um I don't know, just kind of whirlwind out of control of photography, where I always had a camera with me, always had rolls of film. And then I was always in the dark room from like, I worked at Starbucks while I was in college. So Starbucks would close around 10 o'clock. I leave at 11, and I go into my college dark room and to be there until like 5 in the morning. Like the
Mhm.
professor would be coming in to like check the machines. I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, how long have you been here? I was like, oh, this is my rebellion years. I should be out wildly drinking or doing something, and I'm in school making work because
Mhm.
I'm so dedicated to the practice. You
Ah,
know,
I
that,
used to do that with friends too.
yeah.
We just like stay all night
Mm,
in the lab. My job in college was working in the photo lab at school.
nice.
It was like part of work study.
Oh yeah, I did that too.
Yeah, so we could, so we had the keys and everything. And
Hmm.
if they once they trusted you, we could just stay all night long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the most fun. Our
Hmm.
lab was 24/7 for majors.
Okay.
So if you were undergrad, you had to be there with a teacher there. But if you were a major, you can go in whenever you felt like it. So in the middle of the night, so when I couldn't sleep, I would just go to the dark room, or
Mhm.
if I got up too early after work, working at Starbucks, Starbucks sucks to work at, but it also gave me medical care for like my first 10 years of
Mhm.
for, throughout my 20s and a little bit of my 30s. So that's
Mhm.
good. Um, but it was just like, college was so interesting. I was the only Black student in my class at the photography major, and it just felt like I was the only one ever working. Like no one
Mhm.
else was ever in the dark room with me, and but I was also working. Like I was a work study, I babysat, and then I was also Starbucks working at Starbucks, and then
Mhm.
going and taking like an 18 credit hour. Like I just kind of went insane. So it was just remarkable that no one else was there with me. It's like, why
Uh,
aren't you out here? Why aren't
yeah.
you out here doing this? Like, oh, I was the only one insane. And of course, I was the only one that raised my hand when they said, "Who wants to be an artist?" And I'm like, "Me." Everyone else was like, "I'm going to take up architecture, or something like something way smarter, like you can actually make money out of instead of like quickly, instead of like this whole long road to become an artist."
And I don't even know. Well, it's that's yeah. I don't. I wonder if there really is any good kind of like quick way to do. Because I remember like when you're talking about like having your first like portfolio, you're like 18, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna like
Yeah.
get the job. I remember the first time like I think I got paid like $50 to take some pictures for something. And I was like, I remember my mind because I convinced my mom to let me move to Brooklyn and get out of the dorms because it was cheaper. And I was like, my rent at that time in like 2001, the rent was like $500.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, if I just shot 10 pictures, my rent is covered. Like something
Yeah.
wildly like it's just like complete, it's not even reality.
Yeah. No, it's a
And then
wishful. It's wishful.
yeah, and then I think like I remember, being like 21 and in my thesis show, like someone bought a picture for like $200.
Damn.
And I was like, yes. And again in my mind, I'm like, because I think we have this like imagined narrative of
Hmm.
like one of these moments is going to be the moment that you make it.
Yeah.
And it's like that never happens. So it was like,
No.
okay. Then quickly I was like, oh, I have to get a job. I tried photo assisting because
Mm.
like even being in New York, there's a lot of like commercial or fashion photo jobs that you can make. And that one, if you're working regular, you could make like, you know, um, I don't even remember what the rate was. But anyways, like
Hmm.
I was not good at that. I
Oh.
never got called back. I tried assisting for like a independent curator,
Hmm.
you know, I got fired from that. I
Oh.
wasn't good at that,
Yeah.
but I like learned a lot of things along the way. And then I just ended up doing like office work. I worked in like arts admin in New York
Hmm.
for about six years,
Hmm.
um, so that I could have just like a steady day job. And
Yeah.
then I could work at night. I could afford to buy film, to like rent a dark room,
Hmm.
to make work. And then I started trying to apply for residencies in
Yeah.
about 2009 and 10. I like put all my energy into it. And I
Hmm.
started asking people I knew who had gone to residencies. And that was the first time, because I realized for the years before that, I was just kind of like sending these applications out. And then the moment I actually had a friend who had gotten one look at them, he was
Mm-hmm.
like, I was like, it was like, no, you have to, this is all wrong. You don't even know what you're applying for. And then,
Same.
and then it came
Same.
through, but then I did a stupid thing. Maybe it was a good thing. I quit my day job.
Yeah.
So then I like suddenly had access to some materials and space,
Mm-hmm.
but then was consumed with daily stress about like how I was going to pay the bills. So eventually I did go back to freelancing in arts admin and stuff. So
Okay.
I did that for, my whole time in New York
Mm.
before coming back to grad school 6 years ago.
Okay.
So
Wait,
it's
where did you
like
photograph? You went to
to UCLA.
UCLA. Oh, okay. So not in New York. Okay. Did you do
Yeah.
your
So I came
undergrad
back.
in New
I
York?
wanted to go to state school.
Oh,
Hmm?
was it cheaper in California to go to a state school or just?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I was like, I had done, NYU is a private school, and that was,
Oh.
you know, I got a lot of scholarships
Mm-hmm.
and like, and work study and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't too bad, but the thought of going to grad school and going into debt for it
Oh,
just
yeah.
didn't make sense. Like there's a lot of private grad programs where you just take out tons of loans. So at UC, I could get automatic in-state tuition, even
Nice.
though all I had to do was just send my high school transcripts, and I was like, I'm from California. They give you don't have to go through the whole like applying for residency thing again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I came back here and did that. So thinking about all, very much relating to like working in like all like within these two foundations that I was at, like I did like office assistant, then I was like grants and services associate or something, and
Yeah.
then I was like grant making coordinator, and then I like
Mm-hmm.
worked remotely kind of like organizing the grant applications. It's like so, but you're
Right.
just in place for so many years, and then you're like, I love you, but I'm stepping away. And next time I come back,
Mm-hmm.
still this day, I'm like, maybe I should try to apply for one of those grants. Like, I'm so far out of it, I think I could now.
Why not? I mean, might as well.
Hmm.
Um, I've been applying for grants like crazy, of course. But
What were the grants that you said you got some grants this year?
I got so there's a school and a museum here in town called the Pulitzer Foundation of the Arts. It's actually next door to
Hmm.
Sam.
Yeah, I've been
And
there.
they, in association with the Sam Fox School at Washington University, had an ASAP grant, which means a sustaining art practice. For about $2,000. I applied on a whim. I was applied on the last day because I'm never gonna get this. My work sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then I got it. And I was like, sweet, this works. And then I kept getting, I think I ended up getting like 3 more different grants, like a
Oh,
Futures
that's
Fund
amazing.
grant with the Luminary, another local gallery, and then a grant through the Regional Arts Commission in St. Louis, which just gave me tax-free $1,000. So it was like, sweet. I was getting unemployment, and I have a roommate, so my rent is under $500, really under 450. It's just like really cheap in St. Louis, or well, it's a crappy apartment, but it's still really nice. It's
Hmm.
better than most, and I paid off 2 credit cards, and I bought a bunch of equipment and bags, and loaded up on film, and lately I've been doing this. Oh, and exhibitions have been coming towards me like crazy. Like I think
That's
this
great.
year alone, I've
What's
had
coming
like
up?
6 exhibitions. It's been like crazy with 2 more. Like, oh no, and in January I have another one, and I was just like, crap, I gotta start making work. So I've just been scanning my film. I refuse to go back to digital, but I probably should. But now that I'm
Good.
enjoying film again, I've just stuck with
Mhm.
film. uh yeah, it was, I can't imagine anything else, but it's been working out now. The same school I worked with last semester, or last year actually, wants me to come back and teach darkroom for them, darkroom practice. So I'm like excited about that, and I get a studio space again. So I mean, it's working out. Oh, and then I started my Patreon page.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so
How does that work?
well, you start a page and you say like mine is arts education and history and photography, basically. So my channel is just all about photography. I kind of do some, I talk about my photography and my arts practice a lot, and I share information with that with my
Mhm.
members, our patrons. And then I have three tiers. A $3 tier, $10, and $30. And you get access for a different access for each one. And it basically is just like whatever my patron can afford. They just give me $3, $10, $30 a month. And then I support that. Sorry, my Apple
Mhm.
Watch is going crazy. Uh, and they support me. I mean, I have, well, I'm not going to, give a gift horse in the mouth or anything. It's like I have 25 members and I make about $200 a month just in patrons donations and everything. So it's working out great. And this is what this is for. So this is what I do for them.
That's
I have these
great.
conversations with other Black photographers or artists, and we chat, and then they see it, and then like a month later, I put it on YouTube, so
Mhm.
everybody else can enjoy it too. But I try to make them as exclusive as possible. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just it ends up working. Become a patron.
Yeah. Because I mean, I used to do, I mean, that was like all of the sort of like zine and like
Mm,
kind of like DIY projects and stuff that I
yeah.
did kind of served in the same, like, it was a way of making connections and having conversations.
Mhm.
It was like an accessible way to get like work out there in a physical way. Cause um, I really, there were a lot of like little group shows and stuff like that. Maybe like one or two pictures would go and stuff for years, but
Yeah.
until really about like 6 years ago, it was most people encountered the work in those zines.
Mhm.
I could make them while I was at work at my day
Nice.
job. I could just use the
Yeah.
Xerox machine or something like that. Or eventually, when I needed to do more, I did actually go and like
Mhm.
pay to get, but it was something that I
Yeah.
could do at home. I would sit and watch like Law and Order or like some HBO show and
Yeah.
like sit and staple and fold them. But selling those zines and things for like between seven and I think I made one that was like 25 or something, that I would
Mhm.
put a little print in it,
Yeah.
like that was that was how for a long time I was able to cover extra things like
Mhm.
getting some equipment or affording a little more time in the labs.
Mhm.
And it was really great, like so many connections came out of it, so
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how like we always, like as artists, we always have to find these alternate ways to kind of support what we're doing and like
Mhm.
build that kind of more like horizontal support structure.
Right.
Because I think that whole thing about like about talking about when we were like much younger and thinking like, oh, this is going to be the moment, this is the big break, someone's going to
Yeah.
put you on that plane to like shoot Naomi Campbell,
Right.
um or
It's
like
still gonna
actually
happen, Paul.
now I'm gonna it is gonna happen.
It's still gonna
But
happen.
it's like the thing that I realize is it's less of relying on those things, but
Mhm.
it's all the connections that come out of stuff like these conversations or
Yeah.
what artists are doing through the Patreons or through
Mhm.
15, 20 years ago through like the zines and stuff like that
I miss
that
Dean so
has
much. I
you
miss
know
them.
so.
I miss them so much. They were especially like the really like, they went to Kinko's or something. You remember Kinko's? Like
Mhm,
when it was
mhm.
Kinko's, not FedEx, whatever.
Yeah.
And like they spent all day there, I mean, it was so cheap. It was like 10 cents, 5 cents to copy a bunch of shit.
Mhm.
And then you spend all day stapling and everything. And then like you're on the street corner passing it out like some weird person. And it was
Yeah.
amazing. It was the best fun for me making those
Mhm.
images like that. I don't think I had any type of exhibitions when I was in college. I didn't start getting exhibitions until like 2012.
Mhm.
Um, I had stopped photographing for a while there and was really determined to be lazy and bummish, I guess. I don't know. I'd watch. SVU all the time. My friends would call me and they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing, Tiffany?" And I'm like, "I'm solving crime with Benson and Stabler. This is hard. This is a really rough case. The girl was raped. It was awful. I gotta say, they need me. They need my help." And it was just like ridiculous watching Sex in the City, thinking that's how like New York is. It was like, well, Sex in the City is great. Look at New York. I mean, obviously, look how, I mean, Carrie is a writer. She makes it. I must be able to make it. Like just ridiculous nonsense. And then making lattes for everyone. Like I worked at Starbucks for 8 years. It was long enough. And I just looked at everyone one day and I looked at my customers and I'm like, no. It's so strange because I see two of my customers twice a year when I think they're in town, because I think they spend a lot of their time in Italy. I don't know their names. All I know is the wife is a doppio espresso and the husband is a doppio espresso campana, which means whipped cream. That's all I know. That's all I know. So I see them at camp and I'd be like, "Hey, doppio espresso." And they're like, "Hey, barista." And I'm like, I think the last time I saw them, I was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, guys, but I never learned your names." And they're like, "No, it's okay. We never learned your name either." So we're like, we just know each other. Like I told you, St. Louis is extremely small. So we just end up knowing people from where we hang out. I mean, that's basically how friends are made in St. Louis. Just you hang out at a spot, someone will recognize you and want to talk to you. Or you could be a big mouth like me and talk to everybody, which is what I tend to do. Because I just love talking to people. It's like my favorite pastime. That and people watching. It's so much. I think that's why I'm a good photographer, portrait photographer, because my models come in. Most of the time I don't know them, but that's starting to change. And they come into the studio or the house, or we're walking around the neighborhood and we just like connect. And I make a connection. I don't know if I force it, but I definitely reach out and make a connection. And then the facade just melts away. And I can really
Who are
get
you photographing?
I'm sorry, where?
Who are you photographing? I saw on Instagram you were setting up, like you were making portraits at a particular park last week.
Yeah, it was a gallery actually that's kind of in the fields. It's called Granite City Arts and Design District. Or yeah, Arts and Design District. It's in Granite City, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes away from south side of St. Louis. And that's how I make money now. So I sell these tickets, about $60 per portrait, and you get your portrait taken. I try to make it special. Like I use my 4x5 and black and white film, and then I develop the picture myself in the dark room, and I mail it out to you. And it was really successful. I made about $400 or $500 this last Saturday that I did it. So it was so successful that the curator asked if I would do another one before Christmas. So this time I'm doing large format color photography. So, and then I'm also like gonna frame the picture for you. So it's just gonna arrive to your house framed and ready to go to hang up on the wall. So that's been, I mean, that's how I've been making money, aside from unemployment, which stopped way like months ago. My unemployment stopped months ago. So I've just been holding on, making money by portrait shooting, people like shooting portraits for Portrait Day or whatever, selling some work, you know, not a ton, not for what I want to sell it for, you know, not to museums, but to good people who I like and my friends who value me and my work, which is awesome. So I've been selling that, just been surviving on those things and making it work. It's been a struggle, but St. Louis is not California. Like I can easily survive here. I have enough family and friends. The Patreon's helpful. The money I get can stretch, like, you know, it's gonna be okay for me. Like it's gonna be okay. And I still manage to afford film. I don't know how.
Yeah, I remember when like a 120 roll of the Fuji Reala was $250.
Yes.
And then I remember when it went up to $279 a roll, and I was shocked.
I had a fit.
I was like, what? And now it's what, like $10 or something?
Yeah. It's like 10. No, they don't even make Reala anymore.
Oh yeah, that's gone. You have to use like
NPH or
Velvy.
something. Or
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's not my favorite. Riala was good on black skin.
It was so good.
Oh,
The like that Fuji film was amazing with
mhm.
the crystal archive paper, you know.
Oh, perfection. And now
So
over.
it it's really hard to access that and
Mhm.
scanning. But no, it's also like one of the things I remember learning when I worked with both of those like foundation jobs I did because we supported
Mhm.
artists all over the country is that
Oh, cool.
more artists like it's more likely to support yourself as an artist being outside of a big city than in
Mhm.
one of the big cities
Yeah.
because like when I was in New York and trying to you know you know there was I had to do all kinds like so many things to
Mhm.
just make the rent,
Yeah.
because I was fortunate to be in a little townhouse
Mhm.
with two roommates. I was there for 11 years
Oh, wow.
and our landlord never raised the rent. No, it went up by $100 in 11 years
Uh-huh.
because they because she had to do some repairs. But
Right.
like I was still I was still paying like 2003 Brooklyn prices,
Oh, wow.
which for me was still really hard to afford. I was paying 850 a month.
Ooh,
But
you
now it's like
alone, let alone you had two other people.
I had to it was two, but it was a whole house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
you know we had a little backyard, like it was the best. I mean,
Mhm.
the entire house, the rent was 2600 at the end.
Mhm. Okay.
But now, I mean, that's the cost of like a studio apartment,
Yeah.
or like a
Oh,
one bedroom in Brooklyn. There's no way I
mhm.
could have stayed. So, you know having to do all kinds of side odd jobs, like
Mhm.
um that's something that I've been talking a lot with about students lately because they're really stressed about graduating,
Yeah.
and not only the COVID situation, but just how to make it. And there's so few models or examples of how artists actually support themselves. And so one of the things I've been trying to talk about, we got into on Tuesday, was that like making work that you're happy with as an artist, making
Mhm.
work that you feel is successful and that people respond to, and like is not the same thing as making money. And
No.
so it's like, but now there's this whole thing of like everyone's like like creatives and makers and
Yeah.
all these terms, just like
Influencer. Oh, such a
info. It's
great
just like
word.
it's maddening, right? Because there's now this sort of like idea of people who do nothing but make money, but you don't ever consider those people as anyone who's they're
Mm-mm.
not making anything that's like intelligent. They're not contributing to like deepening our thinking and
Mhm.
culture or about photography. It's just like monetizing a platform. And so this is the
Yeah.
model that we have. And I'm like, okay, you could just figure out what all of the advertisers tell you is going to be good. And then everyone's just going to get a bunch of plastic surgery and like makeup
Yeah.
artists
Yeah.
and then make money. So I'm like, okay, we're here in school. We're going to be trying to help each and every one of you make your ideas as solid as possible, figure out like what is meaningful to you in photography,
Mhm.
and that will be the sustaining thing, like as far as like creatively. But
Mhm.
everyone's going to have to get a day job. So I just went through and I told them like every day job that I had, like the
Oh,
things
wow.
that worked, the things that didn't work, you know because I think also something that was really helpful in having these behind the scenes jobs in New York that all
Mhm.
were about funding artists was
Mhm.
realizing that people who I would people whose names I would recognize from like on the walls of museums or galleries, when their applications come across your desk as like the office admin person, and you're like, oh my god, this person's day job is they're like the film archivist at this
Mhm.
like cinema place, or like, oh, this person's job is they're like the installer, like it's
Yeah.
you know we can't having day jobs can't make us feel bad about that the work isn't going places. So anyways, I think it's just like I always find like it's really, so much better to be honest
Mm, yeah.
about everything, and it's only recently that I've been able to technically support myself off of my work, but
Mm.
it's still like unpredictable. And so I have a day job of teaching, because if I was trying to support myself off of artwork sales this year, that would not be happening. Bank would
Yeah,
have come and taken the house away.
yeah. Sorry, Paul. Here's the box. Here's a nice box for you to live
Mhm.
in. I hope,
Yeah.
or move back in with the parents. It's like, okay, I'm back. I'm moving back
Yeah.
in. No, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that either. Not at 40. It's really
Hmm.
sad. No, I understand that. That's why I've gone back to being a teaching artist. I can't fulfill my dream of being an actual photography professor or lecturer because I haven't finished school yet. So I don't have a BFA or an MFA, but I have this fountain of knowledge because of experience and practice of making my own work and troubleshooting and doing my own things that I can teach other people how to do the same thing.
Hmm.
So a lot of people ask me like, how do I do this? What camera to take? And they like to observe me in my studio and how I take shots and everything. That's why the portrait days end up being so successful because people like the way I do portraits with the multiple exposures and they're like, oh, this is interesting, even though you cannot tell who it is, but they just know who it is. Well, they know them and it ends up being this magical thing for them and they pay me for it. So that ends up being my job. But honestly, I don't want I don't want to work a day job, but it's coming to the point where I need to get back into a museum or a gallery and
Hmm.
start doing some archival stuff or something rudimentary. Or, my actual dream is to be um to develop film. Like when I was in before I was or at, when I was out of college, I worked at Wolf Camera in St. Louis. I think it was the last place it was open. It was the best job ever. I would work alone, I would sell cameras, and then I would come in early to, develop film for people and copy slide film for them. And it was magical. I could listen to whatever music I wanted to. All the people were rich in the neighborhood, so they give me tips and everything. And then they closed. Of course, Wolf Camera went under about 2008. They went under right around the Obama years. And it was just like a bummer. It's like, oh man, oh, that was my job. That was making prints and looking at other people's work. I felt like a creep sometimes, but I still loved it because I was like, oh, look at this.
Yeah.
It was,
Have you ever thought about setting up your own photo studio? Like making it there's some an artist that I'd met in Toronto years ago who, because now film is such like a sort of special thing,
yeah,
it's like they do these like also kind of like large format portraits, and so they they have these days where people can come in and so that it might be like a special thing for like a graduation or like wedding,
right.
like events, but
Mhm.
having those like 3 or so days a week where it's open for those supports them doing their
Yeah,
own artwork.
that's actually a good idea. I need to do something like that. The portrait day that I've been having has been so successful that I'm thinking about having one a month. So,
Yeah.
but having it at different galleries. So this one's at one gallery, or the two here is at one gallery, and then there's another friend who own a house and they have a gallery inside their house.
Hmm.
So I'll be reaching out to them to see if I can photograph in their space and just make it a thing. I kind of want to do it at Cam too. It's like portraits at Cam. Come on down, So I might actually that's a really good idea now that I said that. I might go
Hmm.
ahead and contact them because hope gladly, happily, they still like me. I didn't quit on bad terms. So I'm sure I can manage to sneak my way back into their good graces or to letting me photograph people in their space,
Hmm.
probably over the summertime. So I'm not worried about that. It'll happen. I'll make
Yeah.
it. I land on my feet. I'm like a freaking cat. I just, oh, I'm so poor. And then someone will give me money. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you, world. I appreciate it. Like, I'm really poor right now. Can you give me some money? 2 days later, here's random $500 for you. I'm like, sweet. You know, how did
Yeah.
you? I want to know your journey on, and I know you probably have to get going because we've been talking for about an hour, but real quick, I just wanted to know your journey on how you got representation. How did that happen?
Oh,
How did your career development go?
ooh, that is a
Uh-oh.
story.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Now this is gonna take another hour.
No, I mean, I can get to it. One thing I do want to do is grab my computer charger. I just
Oh, sure.
realized it's doing that thing where it's saying like if I don't plug it in, it's gonna die. So I'm gonna grab the charger and I'll be right back and I will tell you that story. I
Okay.
have to get on like another Zoom thing in about 20 minutes, so
Okay.
we're still good.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
be right back.
Okay.
Okay, let me just plug this in. Okay. There we go. Don't want that computer to shut down on me.
Right.
Okay, wow, gallery stuff. So, um, I work with a gallery here in LA
Mm-hmm.
for, let me see, maybe since, I want to say since like December of 2018.
Okay.
And then I work with a gallery in Chicago since, I want to say maybe about 2015, 16.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of started informally.
Mm-hmm.
So in Los Angeles, the gallery is called Vielmetter, and in Chicago, the gallery is called Document.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, I saw those on your website.
yeah, so and I was working with a gallery in New York called Team, but they closed at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of COVID.
That's bummer.
So you know, I was making work by myself, doing kind of like the self-published zines and things. And then around 2007 or 2007, I want to say, I was approached by someone who ran kind of like a small gallery, like a small independent gallery in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kind of very sort of like down, you know, kind of one of those that came out of like the 80s, kind of like East Village punk scene type of a
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Right.
It's a really complicated story, but I had no experience with galleries or anything. And I ended up working with them to do a couple shows. It was very shoestring. Like there was no money,
Yeah.
like when I look back on the first two shows I did there, it's like the frames were kind of busted, like nothing really. It was like
Yeah.
it was very ground floor.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think I learned a lot from it. It felt just sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like an extension of like the loft and apartment shows that
Oh,
I,
okay.
that I was a part of, and like Bushwick, Brooklyn, and stuff like that.
Right.
It ended up to make because this could be like, I could just talk all day about this stuff. It ended up ending in a really bad way.
Oh.
So it was, the gallery was never run properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes
To say it nicely.
sometimes you need to like hire like a real director to do things rather than having like a bunch of interns who don't know
Yeah.
how stuff is going. So by the time I started doing a few residencies and was learning how to do studio visits by about 2009,
Mm-hmm.
um, I, you know, was for the first time having conversations outside of just friends,
Right.
and immediate people, and people sometimes want to follow up with you, and like more people are
Mm-hmm.
learning about the work, especially because I was doing that studio museum
Mm-hmm.
residency.
Yeah, I would like to do that one year too.
Yeah, it's like apply, that's one that I think I had applied to 3 or 4 times before I got it. That's
Yeah.
also something I say is like apply to every grant residency like multiple times and also ask people who've done it about the application.
Mhm.
So if you're
Yeah.
gonna apply, ask me.
I will
Um,
actually.
so, I started getting messages from people saying like, I tried to find out more information about you and basically
Mm-hmm.
what they encountered at the gallery was a mess. So I left and um, it's really interesting. I've never talked about this stuff on like a interview or something like
Oh,
that.
good. I love
Just
asking these
between
questions.
friends. So
Yeah.
I'm also wondering like, okay, this is gonna go out into the world. I mean, there will be a lot of people who know exactly what I'm talking about. Some
Check
not.
your
But
name.
anyways, I when I decided to leave the gallery, they like attempted to retaliate in like a really awful way.
Oh,
So that whole and it wasn't like it's not like I had something fancy waiting for me. It was just sort of like, I'm moving out on my own. It's just
yeah.
kind of like, I got to leave this relationship. It's not like I've got like,
Mm-hmm.
a fiance lined up or like a
Right.
fancy. I was just like, I'm going to be walking the streets and I don't know what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but the experience was just so bad that I just do, I didn't work or even try to approach galleries for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
I did, through all of this, I was doing a lot of self-directed projects, like
Mm-hmm.
doing my own little fundraisers and stuff to get books published or, making small additions and stuff to get
Mm-hmm.
things to be able to support myself for projects.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 2014, I got this residency in Chicago
Mm.
um, at the Hyde Park Art Center.
Okay.
And the apartment I was staying at, I could walk to the Obama's house. I was like, ooh, I was like,
Nice.
yeah, Chicago,
Oh yeah. What's
Um,
up, Obama? Like he was on Obama or
I was
something.
like, well, because I would know when I was getting close because my cell phone would stop working. And then I would notice all the black cars like parked all along the street.
Oh no way.
Oh, yeah. The
Okay.
Secret Service, I think, jams everyone. So it was,
Yeah.
anyways, I was introduced to the folks at Document.
Mm.
So because who I still work with, so Aaron, who runs that space, he's an artist, he's a photographer, and his day job, because
Mm-hmm.
we all had
Oh
day jobs,
wow.
was doing printing for other artists. So he prints for like Deadwood Bay and Laura Lipinski and all these Chicago photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And the residency put me in touch with him and was like, oh, if you want to print any of your work, they just try
Mm-hmm.
to make some connections.
Right.
So that's how we got in touch. And then the gallery kind of began with with a space that I believe opened up next to his studio. And they were like, oh, we could rent this space and put up small shows or
Mm-hmm.
some works that have been printing by people. And then that gradually turned into a gallery. So now it's like a gallery and they have a printing business.
Nice.
And they brought in the director. And so, that first gallery in New York, it's like, the occasional sale was very few and far between.
Right.
I feel like I was the one who like brought sales to them. Someone would email
Hmm.
me and I was trying to be like proper and like be like, go to the gallery.
Right.
But so with Document, I was invited back to the Hyde Park Art Center to do a show,
Mm-hmm.
and they helped me put it together. They printed everything and helped take
Oh
care
wow.
of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after that, we decided to do a show together. But there was never, they were just beginning as a gallery, and there was never any pressure to. It wasn't like we can only do this because we think it'll sell, right? It's like
Right.
that,
Right.
that show from the Hyde Park Art Center. The next show we did, I don't think anything sold, but there wasn't pressure to because
Mm-hmm.
there was, there was an aspect of the business that supported the beginning of the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just enjoyed working with them, and they're really great. I still produce all of the exhibition prints and stuff like
Mm.
that,
Through
and
them.
the work that sold is still produced through them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of was like, and so now, um, now they are a full-fledged gallery.
Wow.
But then right also as I was leaving New York in 2014, I was invited to be in a group show at
Mm-hmm.
Yancey Richardson Gallery.
Mm. I've heard of that gallery.
Yeah, she shows like, she shows like Mickalene Thomas's
Mm-hmm.
photographs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and Zanelli Muholi and stuff like that. And she was really nice. I worked with them for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, but kind of we part, and that was sort of the show I did with them in like 20. Actually, so when I had some work in a group show there in 2014 or so, and that was the first time I had work in a show, like in a group show, and the gallery had sold something. So this
Wow.
was also like 14 years into having
Wow.
been in New York, and it was that show opened the month I was leaving New York to move to LA.
Of course.
So they sold work, and that was the first time having a gallery that sold work. And our kind of like visions for things diverged. I
Oh.
was afraid to leave them for a while because it was like for the first time having a gallery that sold work,
Mm-hmm.
before I had the security of a teaching job, you
Right.
know. But we parted ways, and I've been working with, and then I've been working with Team Gallery, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like these conversations. Like I was introduced to Yancey, through Hank Willis Thomas,
Oh, yeah.
and she was putting together a group show about the artist in the studio, and he was like, "Oh, you should look at Paul's work."
Oh, cool.
So that's how that came about. I've known Jose, who ran Team Gallery, for years, just being in New York. And when
Mm-hmm.
he would come to LA, because for a while he had a space out here,
Mm.
we'd just meet up for like lunch or something. Or when I was at UCLA, I would be like, oh, here's some interesting people, like classmates that I think you should, that I think you would like. But I started working with them because all of, this sort of recent work, the whole darkroom project and stuff,
Yeah.
that was kind of, I was starting that work, and that was the stuff that Yancey was not so much behind.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
And I was really insecure of whether or not I should try to show it. And
Mm.
so he was like, I think this is really great. There's a space out here in LA, our little bungalow space,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to give it a shot. So that's how
Yeah.
we started working together.
Mm.
But Team is mostly based in New York. So I switched to working with Team there
Mm-hmm.
until they closed.
Okay.
Um, but then I've known folks who've both shown at Vielmetter for years since my day job life.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
several of the artists who show at Suzanne Vielmetter's gallery, I first got to know their work or met them because they had been grant recipients for the foundation I worked with
Oh,
in
wow.
New York.
There you
So
go.
I was familiar with her gallery since 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a good friend who's worked at the gallery almost since the beginning,
Right.
who have always been really helpful, just advice in terms of, like if I had questions about how things in the gallery system worked, or trying to think things through with any of the other spaces,
Mm-hmm.
was just super helpful. And so as this stuff was shifting, the conversation came up, oh, maybe we should work together. And so that's how this has all come together. So
Yeah.
it's been, so nothing has been kind of like this immediate sort of like thing. Everything is kind of built off of smaller
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Things kind of
Yeah.
shift around. And there's a thing that I like about both Document and Vielmetter is they haven't pressured to make a certain kind of work. They've pretty much stood behind whatever I'm kind of interested in doing.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, that's maybe a lot of info. I don't know.
I love it. It's fine. Well, it gives me a
Yeah.
lot of relief that, you know, because I remember in the early 2000s, if you wanted a gallery, you had to hunt for it yourself. Like you
Mm.
had to produce a book and go, and this is before emails were
Oh God, yeah. People would drop off portfolios at galleries and all this
yeah,
stuff. It's like that thing doesn't
yeah,
happen. It's like everything is through word of mouth, like one
yeah.
artist and then there was that moment of I don't know if it happened all over, but definitely in New York in those
Mm,
years of like 2000 to 2008, it was the time of you have to go to Columbia
mm.
or Yale,
Oh,
and then all the collectors and the gallerists come to your thesis shows and buy up your entire studio, and
oh
then you get
gosh.
like a solo show
Yeah.
in Chelsea or the Upper East Side. And that kind of thing was
Mhm.
it was just like a whole narrative that just was really damaging,
Yeah.
and it collapsed with the crash of 2008. But I think in some ways there still is this myth of like of this thing where you just kind of get into the right space and you sort of like know how to say the right thing, and then
Mhm.
you go into having this like
Yeah. And
you
now you're
know
freaking Basquiat. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not the way that works. But I have to prepare for this next thing. But
Yeah.
I yeah, it's been really cool chatting.
Yeah.
And
It was great. Thank you, Paul, for doing that.
yeah, or is there any final questions or things
What
to wrap
music are
up?
you listening to?
Oh, music.
Or in the
Music.
studio? So we know you're a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, but
Well, okay, because the thing is, I was like having this moment of being like, oh my God, it's been 20 years since
yeah.
graduating high school. And I was, I know what came up. There was something about that.
Hmm.
And also, I think a friend was mentioning the what was that Batman movie? The Batman movie
Oh, with
with
Arnold Schwarzenegger
Uma
as Mr.
Thurman and Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's like Poison Ivy, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
and the
Oh, they did
Smashing
songs in it.
Pumpkins. The
Yeah,
Smashing Pumpkins did that song. The beginning is the end is the beginning, and the end
yeah,
is the beginning is the end.
yeah. It
And
was
in my mind, and
fun.
I was just like, it was in my head, and I
Yeah.
just like put it on the studio. But I wouldn't say I'm a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan.
Don't pretend, Paul.
But I
It's
know.
gonna be okay.
But I can open my Spotify and see what the last things I was listening to, because I'm really bad at what was the last on my head.
Sure.
Last thing I was listening to. Oh, okay. The last thing I was listening to was Stevie Wonder,
My favorite.
David Bowie,
Man, we are like in sync.
Everything But the Girl,
Oh wow. We are so
Terry
90s.
Callier, Terry Callier. Ooh, yeah, these
Are,
mixes.
are you also listening
David
to
David
classic?
Callier, Sade,
Oh
Betty Swan, and Aretha Franklin. That was like a
yeah.
mix I was kind of on, kind of like some 70s Evelyn Champagne King and A Taste
Hmm.
of Honey. But
Hmm.
then actually, okay, what I was listening to yesterday in the studio
Hmm.
um, was SWV, Brandy, Macy Gray, Timbaland, and
Oh,
Jamiroquai, which maybe I'm embarrassed about that.
no,
And
no.
Tiana Taylor and Lutricia McNeil.
Nice.
That was like I could just go down that list.
When I did have a Spotify account, and I am thinking about taking it back up again, I lived off of Stevie Wonder songs from Storybook or Solomon. I don't forget what.
Oh, songs from the Key of Life.
Yeah, songs from the Tree of Life. Sorry, like I don't know. No one calls me normally. I don't understand. Anyways, songs from the Tree of Life. I have the album, so I'll listen to it on vinyl. And then if I don't feel like digging it out of my record case, I get it from Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. Megan Thee Stallion, I was into for like a hot second. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
I like to reminisce with some Aaliyah. So I
Mm-hmm.
was at a Goodwill and found her first album. And I was like
Oh,
the
yeah.
biggest treasure I could have ever found. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. And then I've been listening to 07 and
Oh,
Massive
wow.
Attack.
07.
Yeah, I can't listen to this new stuff anymore. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bought Beyonce's first album that was moldy, but they took off the mold or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And and Stereo Lab. I've been listening to Stereo Lab too. So
Oh, wow. We were listening to Stereo Loud the other day.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
put on- and I was like, oh, yeah, that like mumbly French.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yes.
like, da, 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 da. And
Yeah.
I was kind of piecing together, like, oh, there's this formula for a Stereo Lab song of kind
Great,
of like,
great.
and I feel like
Yeah. And the mumbling. Yeah. Blah blah blah. I'm in French. Ah la la.
uh,
Yeah,
oh,
pretty much. It was
man.
always the same, but it was brilliant. And I saw them live.
Oh,
So
cool.
I saw Sweeter Kenny live during Hot Rock, and then I also saw
Oh, wow.
Stereo Lab before Mary died.
Mm.
Mary had died the day or the month later or something, or a couple of months later. And who else did I see? I don't know. Somebody Interpol or something at some dive bar. Um,
Interpol.
TV in the
Wow.
radio. I
That
love
brings
TV in the radio,
back.
doesn't it? White
Mhm.
Stripes. I saw
Oh
Jack
my
and Megan White at this crummy ass bar downtown St. Louis. And
wow.
my boyfriend at the time made me leave because he didn't like Jack White's voice. And I'm like, this guy's amazing, Kevin. He's gonna be great. I don't like music. And I'm like, oh, fine, we'll leave. And then the next time they came in, he was playing at like this other huge stereo place, the venue or something that I couldn't afford to get
Mhm.
to. Meanwhile, a year later, I walked into this to get a drink. I walked in to get some beer and they're playing and they played Jolene and
Oh
it
wow.
was amazing. It was amazing. Let's do this again. This was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for reaching out. And I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that. I was in the hospital for like 4 days.
Oh
It
no.
was a nightmare. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But it was great seeing you and hanging out and talking. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad we did this at the beginning of my day because now I'm
Yes.
gonna be on Zoom until like 6:30.
Oh, I'm
And
gonna
then
watch Sex in the City.
oh, get it. Enjoy that.
Excellent. Have a good one, Paul.
Okay, take care.
All right, you
Bye.
too. Bye.